TCU football commit Hauss Hejny, Alito quarterback, will be playing for a state championship tonight against Smithson Valley. What kind of quarterback room will he walk into this spring? We'll talk about that and more next here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That's right, Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. We are free and available wherever it is you get your podcast. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can also subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever it is that you like to listen to podcasts. In its audio variety, it is there for you. Hauss Hejny plays tonight in the state title game. Hauss is Alito's quarterback, and he's not – I don't think he's the highest rated player in the 2024 TCU class, but I believe Jakyle Baker is. But, I mean, he's the biggest name because of the position he plays, and he's a legacy, right? Like, he was originally a Duke commit. And honestly, it was the change in coordinators. As soon as Kendall Briles came on board, that was a guy that he targeted early along with Jaden Rashada, which they missed out on him. He ends up at Arizona State. But Hauss was the guy that they targeted for the 2024 class, and he quickly flipped his commitment to TCU, and since then has been, extremely loyal. Even with the tough season that TCU had this past year, has been locked into that commitment. It's going to roll early. So I'm excited to watch him tonight. If you haven't seen him play, I'd encourage you to do that. The game's going to be on Valley Sports at 7 p.m. They're playing Smithson Valley. Alito's going for their 12th state title, which is pretty incredible. I also saw, I think Blake Burdine, Landry Burdine's son, he's the color analyst for the TCU radio broadcast. He's playing for Alito tonight as well. And good luck to him as in that family as they go for a state title. But Hauss is a great player, dual threat, incredible athlete, can really run, great speed, but throws the ball well too. Elite 11 finalist. I'm excited to see him play and get a chance to kind of see his skill set one more time at the high school level. What is this quarterback room going to look like when he walks in and enrolls early in the spring? Well, as of now, Chandler Morris is there. And, I mean, my assumption is that Chandler is sticking around because he hasn't graduated yet, and he's going to go through the spring with the team and take classes so he can graduate, and then after spring ball, we'll decide what he wants to do next. I know a lot of people have just completely given up on him being the starter, and if I had to bet right now, I would say Josh Hoover is going to be your starter in 2024 when the team takes the field against Stanford on the road. I will say this, though. To this point, haven't really heard much of anything as far as TCU targeting quarterbacks in the portal. Matthew Sluka is the only name that's really come up, the quarterback from Holy Cross who put up great numbers at the FCS level this past year. And he's got heavy interest from a lot of different schools. But that's the only name I've even really seen TCU connected to. Malik Murphy, the Texas backup quarterback, he entered the portal a few days ago. And On3 put out a list of teams that he's kind of interested in. TCU was not on that list. The challenge last year and they did go heavy after some portal players last year at that quarterback position. I think a big challenge for them was getting guys on board when Chandler Morris kind of appeared to be the clear-cut starter. And Tommy Fisher brought up to me a few weeks back, he was like, well, when you think about it, Josh is actually Josh coming into this next season has more playing experience than Chandler did going into this past season. Like if you compared them, because going into this past year, Chandler had that performance in the Baylor game, started against Oklahoma State, then he got hurt, and then he played a half of football against Colorado, got hurt, and he was out for the rest of the year. And I mean, Hoover played 6 games. Now they went 2-4 when he was playing, but we understand the context of that. Defense was struggling at times. The O-line couldn't really protect him. He was a young QB, learned his way. In my mind, the Tech game is the only game where I felt like his play was really one of the biggest factors in the loss. Those turnovers just killed him. That big turnover when they were backed up near the end zone and had a 1-point lead, and that led to a Tech score was a killer. And then he threw that pick at the end of the game where I can't even remember who that was. Maybe it was JoJo Earl trying to come across the middle. But anyway, he threw that pick at the end of the game when they had gotten into plus territory and looked like maybe they were moving in there to score a touchdown that could have tied it at least right there before the end of regulation. And you could argue like the pick against Texas right before half was really bad. But, it was honestly just a collective team effort in the second quarter where they played really poorly that led to that loss. But Tommy's point was like, if you're trying to convince a transfer quarterback to come in here, you might have more trouble this season because, Josh technically has played more games. Now, my perspective on that is I don't think quarterbacks are really looking at how many games somebody's played. I feel like it's more just a perception thing. And the perception nationally and at least like locally was, oh, yeah, that's Chandler's job. So I think that was a bigger factor than the guys actually like studying, oh, this guy's got 4 or 5 starts in his career, whatever the case may be. But my overall point is I know a lot of people have just given up on Chandler Morris. And I've been called the Chandler Morris apologist because when he was really struggling kind of midway through the season, I was still like, I think this guy can figure it out. I think he can play at a high level. And he ended up getting hurt, and it didn't really matter because his injury kept him out for the majority of the rest of the season. And then by the time he was healthy again, Josh had kind of taken the reins and looked like the dude moving forward. But if it comes down to it, and you need an experienced player behind Josh Hoover for this upcoming year to give Hauss Hejny time to get accustomed to college football and get ready to play going into the next season, then I think Chandler's a really good option. And I think it's a good thing for the program and for the team if he's still here. Now, if he goes through spring ball and it doesn't appear to him that he's going to be able to have a chance to be the starting quarterback, will he stick around? I doubt it. Because, at that, like Chandler's been around for a long time. He doesn't have a lot of eligibility left. And he's got limited opportunities to be a starter. The flip side of that is, though, once you get through spring practice, a lot of these jobs are going to be taken. Like if he doesn't enter the portal before this next semester and goes, potentially goes through practice with the team, a lot of these opportunities are going to be filled. And so maybe the pitch is like, hey, the grass might not be greener. Maybe you could stick around, help the team, and we'll give you opportunities in fall camp to show what you can do. Some people have brought up the potential of Hauss Hejny starting as a true freshman. I don't think that's a great idea. I understand he's really talented. It has nothing to do with his talent level or what I think he can be as a quarterback. I feel like his ceiling is really, really high. It's just difficult to be a Power 5 starting quarterback as a true freshman. It just is. And I think he could really benefit from having a bridge year. And I don't really know what Josh Hoover's like. Also, I just kind of want to see what Josh can do this season. Maybe Josh Hoover ends up being the guy for the next couple of seasons. I don't know. He showed some flashes this year that would lead me to believe that could be the case. Now, with Hejny's athleticism and his speed and his ability to get things done in the run game, I like the idea and the possibility of having some packages for him during the season where he can make some things happen. A couple of years back, I remember when that quarterback competition was going on, it was mainly between Max Duggan and Chandler Morris, but there was Sam Jackson was there as well. And Sonny made the point multiple times to say that Sam Jackson had really impressed him and the staff. And he even went as far as to say that 3 quarterbacks were going to play in that Colorado game. And I think he ended up being right because Chandler got hurt and then Max came in. And then once that game kind of got out of hand, they put Sam in there to take the last few snaps of the game to prevent any other injuries. And then Sam played in the Tarleton game as well. And I feel like that was the last time that we saw him throughout the rest of the season. But when all that was going on and they were talking about the potential of like 3 QBs getting opportunities, I do remember people saying like, hey, in practice, like if people that were at practice were saying like they're installing some things for Sam Jackson or maybe there'll be a special package or some chances for him to do some things. It was primarily going to be him running the football, but having him involved in the offense, I remember there's some plays where he's lined up a wide receiver. Now, none of that really came to fruition. That didn't end up being the case, but you try out different things in the spring and the fall. And so if the idea is, can we use Hauss in specific situations where his availability is there and he can use his athleticism, I think that's great. Coaches still have to think about redshirting players, but honestly, what's the point of redshirting guys at this day and time? If guys don't play quickly, they're probably going to, especially these highly rated guys, they're probably going to be upset. There's a decent chance they try to move on. I think you have to be more worried about, okay, where's the talent? Where can we use these players? Where can we get them involved in the game plan, no matter what the case is? But I'm excited to watch Hauss play tonight. And I think it's going to be fascinating to see this QB battle kind of play out, if there even is one, going into this next season. They haven't been super active in the portal so far at this position. So if it comes down to it, I think Chandler Moore sticking around is not the worst thing in the world. I think it could actually be a really good thing for this team and this program. I'm sure a lot of you will disagree with me, and that's fine. I would love to hear your thoughts about it. Let me know in the YouTube comments or tweet at me, @SimCockSteven. I would love to hear your perspective. That's why we do the show. When we come back, the Chargers had a rough night last night. And I have some thoughts about Quentin Johnston and where TCU is. And possibly I'm overreacting, but I'm concerned about the direction this is going. We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. If you need tickets, TCU basketball tickets, concert tickets, tickets to a comedy show, the Gametime app is what you need to use. And if you use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege, you can get $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. You get $20 off your first purchase with that promo code LOCKEDONCollege. I told you about this before. One thing I love about the Gametime app, they show you exactly what the view is from your seat. You see a picture, and it's like, okay, that's what I'm going to see. That's my view of the field or the stage, whatever the case may be, when I sit down. It's super easy to use. Just a couple taps on the button, and you'll have tickets, and it goes straight to your phone. So you don't have to worry about, okay, check my email now, or where do I have to go? What's my password for this app? It goes straight to the Gametime app. You can use it there on your phone. Locked On College is the promo code to get $20 off. They have last-minute deals, flash deals. So if you didn't plan great, or if you're just someone who I'm kind of a meticulous decision maker, it's tough for me to pull the trigger sometimes, especially when it comes down to money. And so oftentimes I'll kind of wait on something, but then it's more expensive the longer I wait. Well, the cool thing about the Gametime app is they have flash deals right at the last minute. So if you're a thinker like me, if you can get in your head about things, then you can have patience, and sometimes it pays off with the Gametime app because they have those last second deals for you. Download the Gametime app today. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first order. Gametime app, it's the best place to buy tickets, and they are a proud sponsor here of the Locked On Network. So if you didn't watch Thursday Night Football last night, you did not miss a competitive game. I will tell you that. The Raiders and the Chargers. And the Raiders were coming off a performance against the Vikings where they lost 3-0. They got shut out. They did not score any points. They dropped 63 points on the Chargers yesterday. They were aided by an offense that kept turning the ball over. But bottom line is they put up some huge numbers in that ball game. They're up I think they're up 42-0 at halftime. It was one of the most non-competitive NFL football games I've ever seen. From just start to finish, the Raiders outclassed the Chargers at every level. I don't really know how Brandon Staley still has a job today, at least as of when I'm recording this morning. Maybe they're just trying to get through the season, but that team's a mess. Justin Herbert's hurt. Easton Stick was in there. And so it got to 28-0, and I turned it off because I have to be pretty selective, with my life and my family, my kids. I have to be pretty selective outside of TCU sporting events. I have to be pretty careful about how much I'm watching. I have to do a good job of picking what I'm watching and taking that time and making sure that it's worth it, right? And so if it's a non-competitive football game, I'm going to move on. So I turned the game off. But I'm looking on Twitter and social media, and I see multiple times, or I just see really the rest of the night, a lot of TCU fans saying, get Max Duggan in the game. Like, put Max in there. How could it be worse? You're getting absolutely destroyed. Easton Stick's not getting it done. Put him in there. And I kind of felt conflicted about it. Obviously, I want Max to play. I want him to succeed. He's on the active roster now, which is really, really cool. At the same time, I'm like, this Chargers O-line looks awful. I don't know if it's the best situation if he gets thrown out there in the fray like that. But the main reason I turned that game on, and the Chargers have become like TCU West. I got to talk with the Locked On Chargers guys before the season. They were fantastic. They're very kind to me. I'm sorry to you guys. It's been a rough year. Darius Davis, Max Duggan, Quentin Johnston. And Max has, quietly done what he's been asked to do. He's been moved up to that second string quarterback label right now because Justin's hurt. Darius Davis has had a really nice season as a punt returner and a kick returner. They've even got him involved in the offense a little bit. There's a good chance he's going to be a Pro Bowler, a Pro Bowl starter in the AFC as a special teams guy because he's just been an ace returner, and I'm super excited for him. Quentin Johnston has had a tough year. He's had some very untimely drops, and he did have a pretty good game against the Broncos a couple weeks ago, 91 yards receiving, had one big, long catch that came from Easton Stick. Keenan Allen was out last night, and so the hope was maybe Quentin would get some more targets. 2 receptions, 23 yards on 3 targets. Now, he did have a touchdown. He did have a late touchdown, which was good to see. And it feels like Quentin is starting to get his feet under him. When he got drafted by the Chargers, I was super excited about it because in my mind, my first thought was like, man, Herbert's got such a strong arm. QJ has that ability to go down the field and make plays. He's such a vertical threat. Like, this feels like a match made in heaven. That hasn't been the case. And a lot of it is there are good receivers ahead of him. I mean, Keenan Allen's there, Mike Williams. Those guys are banged up at this point. But Joshua Palmer's a vet that's been around for a long time. Like, he sort of walked into a crowded wide receiver room from a talent perspective. But I would say to this point it's been a disappointing season. Now, he's got time to turn that around in the last few weeks, and then he'll have an entire offseason to sort of continue to grow and develop. And it hasn't been a total wash. I mean, he's, looking at his stats, 14 catches for 356 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's made some plays. But I am a little bit concerned. And let me know if I'm overreacting. There have been some players at TCU lately that have had success in the NFL. Steve Avila is having a nice rookie season. I mentioned Darius Davis. Amari DiMercato is done some good things. He made the roster with the Cardinals. And it's funny, too. So much of this is about expectations. Because Amari DiMercato is an undrafted free agent. He gets signed by the Cardinals. He makes the team. Great story. And he's been featured some on this Cardinals team this season. 244 yards, had a rushing touchdown. If he was a first or second round pick, those numbers would be really disappointing. But given where he was selected and, what the expectations were for him, you feel great for him. And Amari did so much work to make himself a great player. It's just an amazing story. But then a guy like QJ has over 400 yards receiving, or 350. What did I just say? I got it pulled up here. I'm sorry. 356 yards receiving, and he's a first-round pick, and you're like, man, that's disappointing. And it doesn't help that rookie wide receivers across the league are just tearing it up. Puka Nacua for the Rams has over 1,000 yards receiving. Jordan Addison was 713. Tank Dell was 709. His season did come to an end a few weeks ago with an injury, unfortunately. Zay Flowers, 673 yards. Rasheed Rice was 673 yards. Jackson Smith-Njigba has 493 yards, and he's dealt with some injuries. But because Quentin's a first-round pick, there's a spotlight on him, and so far it hasn't worked out. And there has been kind of a run of that, especially at the receiver position, like Josh Doxson with Washington. And honestly, like, Josh was pretty productive when he was healthy. I think people forget that. With Josh, it wasn't so much that he was just a complete bust on the field. It was that he just wasn't available. And then he also didn't have some great moments when he was there. But overall, like, he was effective when he was in the game. Jalen Reagor, ends up getting drafted by the by the Eagles. That didn't work. He goes to the Vikings. Didn't work there. And then I think he's still with the Patriots as of now. But, those two guys, first-round picks that just didn't happen. Jason Verrett has actually had, an okay career. It's just, again, the injury bug has hurt him. And so I was super hopeful for Quentin because I thought he was the type of guy, the complete package at wide receiver that could just hit the ground running. And my main concern is I just don't want people to use this as, a negative thing against TCU. And I feel like part of this is spotlight theory. Because I'm so invested in TCU and I'm, always interested in what they're doing and what former players are doing, I feel the pressure for him of man, he needs to be great. I don't think people across the country are sitting around oh man, what's, putting together Quentin Johnston, TCU wide receiver, having a tough year. Let's look at their last few first round picks and see how they've done. But I think it would just be good for the program if QJ can get it going. And I hope for him, obviously, just as he's a great person and I want him to do well and I want him to succeed. And he did have a touchdown last night. And, as I said, they've had some players have success this year as rookies. It's just tough to watch, Quentin struggle when I know how hard he's working. And I know how well he can play. And so hopefully he can get it figured out. And I don't want this to become a narrative against TCU that they can't produce productive NFL players. But also the flip side of that is Patrick Mahomes at Tech, amazing NFL player. And honestly, his success in the NFL has kind of been an indictment on Tech. And what the heck were you doing when he was there? I mean, the answer is they had no defense and they struggled to protect him. But then also, it's not like that has led to just an amazing run of great quarterbacks who have come through Lubbock since he graduated. But at the same time, it's incredible PR for the school. And so I hope Quentin figures it out. And maybe he's on his way to doing it. It does feel like the last few weeks he's been more involved. And it's just been a rough thing for TCU so far with guys in the NFL. But we'll see how things pick up as we continue to go throughout the season. When we come back, we'll wrap things up and get some reaction from you guys. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best daily fantasy app. Locked On College is a promo code. You can get a first deposit match up to $100. It's $100 of free money with that first deposit match. So you put in 20, they'll give you 20 that you can work with there on PrizePicks. It's simple. You see stat totals for different players, and you go either up or down. That's how they make you pick. So it's really easy to use. They have an app that's super easy and simple to navigate. PrizePicks, it's the best daily fantasy app on the market. They have a specials tab, which allows you to make combo projections with NFL and NBA players. PrizePicks, use it today. They're a proud sponsor here of the Locked On Network. So I talked yesterday about just TCU, where they're at, kind of who they're targeting. Jeremy Clark from 247 Sports had a report that they're going after Drake Dabney, Baylor tight end. Also had Eric McAllister on campus, who has been someone they've been targeting for a while. Boise State transfer. He transfers. He hit the portal after being at Boise State for a few seasons. Was super productive this past year. Shut things down a little bit early after, funny enough, Andy Avalos, who's now TCU's DC, was let go by Boise State. And so he's there, and he could reunite with Eric McAllister potentially here in a few days if he decides to make that choice and commit to TCU. But I was discussing that and also TCU's recruiting strategy, because William chimed in and said he was just concerned about the lack of star power that TCU has on the recruiting front. They're not pulling in a lot of 4- and 5-star guys in this high school class. The portal, they've gone a little more after group of 5 players. And so I tried to explain kind of my perspective, and I think they're going after, some more developmental projects, and they're using the portal as a way to bridge the gap to get those guys to a place where they can succeed. And so William said he appreciated my perspective on that, which thanks, man. I thank you for your feedback. And yeah, we'll see. I mean, he mentioned Deion Sanders. Deion's doing a really good job on the recruiting trail right now. Obviously, he has a magnetism and a charisma, and just because of his career as both an NFL and MLB player, and being one of the most famous athletes in the world, that Sonny's not going to command that same type of aura when he walks into the room. In Colorado, I think with all the media opportunities they have, there's probably a good amount of NIL opportunities for those players. But I really think TCU can compete in this new conference. I mean, obviously they can. They've competed in the old Big 12, and you're losing two of the kind of blue blood schools. But from a talent perspective, I think they can be right there with some of the best. Matt Clark said he always thought Dabney was underused by Baylor for the amount of talent he has. He thinks they need a running back, though. He would love Cam Cooker, one of those young guys to explode on the scene, but you can't count on that. Yeah, Drake Dabney had a big year this past year. I still think TCU could unlock, some aspects of his game that weren't used at Baylor. And as far as the running back position goes, I agree with you. I think they need to take a flyer on somebody, whether that's a veteran running back who can kind of just be a change of pace, or someone who can push for that starting job. Because I like Cam Cook as well. I'm just not sure he's ready to step in day one and be a starter. But we'll see. Tommy Fisher said, I think as time goes on, high school recruiting is less and less important. He says 30 to 40% of the high school class won't make it to year two. Recruiting the portal is probably more important for TCU right now because they're bringing in proven guys, and a lot of these 4- and 5-star kids might not make it. Yeah, I totally see your point. I mean, I think high school recruiting is still important, but it's definitely not what it was even 5 or 10 years ago. And TCU might end up being a school that just has to go heavy in the portal in some ways, not to build their roster, but just to, okay, where are the places where we need somebody to come in and contribute right away? Let's go get somebody out of the portal who has game experience who can do that. And then, while we're doing that, we're also trying to bring in high school kids that are talented and that we can develop and get to a place where they can play at a high level. We'll be back on Monday. This is Locked On Horned Frogs. Appreciate you guys chiming in and listening to the show or watching it. It's your team, and we do it here every day. We're free and available wherever it is you get your podcast.